Welcome to THN Mystery. This is not a place for the curious. This is a place for those who need to know. Even if knowing means you'll never sleep again. We don't make things up. We retell what has already happened. Forgotten cases, shadows in history, and things that were never meant to be spoken of. If you believe in reason, prepare to let it go. If this is exactly what you've been looking for, then you're in the right place. Like and subscribe to the channel and join us as we step into another chapter of darkness. Now turn off the lights and enjoy.
A couple, an old yacht, a simple retirement dream. They weren't rich, just two people who saved their whole lives for peace and freedom. But then, a phone call, a stranger, and a sea trial they never returned from. What waited for them? Offshore? And why was the last thing Jackie did to misspell her name before being dragged into the ocean's depths?
Manifestation of evil. Among the many stories I've shared, this one stands firmly in the top 5 most gripping and chilling cases. This video contains no graphic or grotesque footage, but its ending includes a deeply haunting detail that may leave viewers unsettled. So please consider carefully before continuing. Part 1. A Fateful Encounter. In 1986, Tom Hawks, then 39 years old, was the father of 2 teenage sons. He had previously been married to their mother, but the relationship had fallen apart, and they divorced. That summer, Tom and his boys joined a neighborhood chili cook-off event in Newport Beach, California. Amid the lively crowd, Tom suddenly noticed a woman who stood out, striking, elegant, and completely unfamiliar. He couldn't look away. He stared for so long that the woman eventually noticed. She glanced back, offered a gentle smile, then turned away, leaving Tom a little embarrassed for being caught staring. Not wanting to miss the moment, Tom, a strong masculine man with a rugged look and a neatly trimmed mustache, boldly crossed the grass and approached her to introduce himself. She smiled warmly and told him her name was Jackie. She was 29 and single. From that moment, a quiet but powerful connection sparked between them. Their relationship blossomed quickly, and just a few years later, in 1989, Tom and Jackie were married in front of about 150 close friends and relatives. After the wedding, Jackie moved in with Tom and his 2 sons. Although the boys' biological mother was still in their lives, both of them eventually began calling Jackie Mom. She wasn't just a new presence in their home. She truly loved them as her own. Few people knew that when Jackie was 22, she had survived a serious motorcycle accident that caused internal injuries, making her unable to have children. Motherhood had always been her dream, and when life gave her the chance to become a stepmother, she embraced it fully, loving and caring for the boys with all her heart. She became, in every sense, a devoted and irreplaceable mother. Part 2. The Retirement Dream. Over the years, Tom and Jackie raised their 2 boys with love and dedication. By 2002, with both sons grown and living independently, the couple officially became empty nesters. This was a bittersweet chapter, because much of their identity had always been tied to being parents, and their bond with the boys was incredibly strong. Still, they had long seen this day coming, and in truth, they had been preparing for it for years. They'd carefully saved money year after year, with one shared goal in mind, that once the boys left home, they would both retire together. Their dream wasn't to buy a quiet house in the suburbs. Their dream was to purchase a yacht and live aboard, sailing up and down the coast of California and Mexico. Neither Tom nor Jackie was wealthy, but they were extremely disciplined, careful, and financially savvy. They lived simply, spending only on essentials, and saved nearly every dollar they earned. And after years of saving, their plan finally came together. In 2002, with their children out of the house, Tom and Jackie sold their home in Newport Beach, California. Between the proceeds from the sale and their savings, they could afford to buy an old, somewhat worn-out yacht. They named it Well Deserved, a perfect name for something they had worked their entire lives to earn. It wasn't the glamorous kind of yacht that people picture in movies, but Tom and Jackie loved it. As soon as the purchase was complete and the yacht was docked in Newport, they moved all their belongings aboard and made it their full-time home. They spent weeks organizing, cleaning, and upgrading what they could, working within their modest budget. By summer, the boat was transformed, not into a luxury liner, but into something warm, comfortable, and deeply personal. Every corner bore the mark of their care and personality. It truly became their floating home. And for the next 2 years, they lived exactly the life they had dreamed of. They sailed along the coastlines of California and Mexico, watched breathtaking sunsets, caught fresh fish every day, and enjoyed cocktails together under open skies. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving. For Tom and Jackie, it was the perfect retirement, a peaceful life, well earned. Part 3: The Grandchild and the Decision to Sell. Then, in 2004, Tom and Jackie received completely unexpected news. One of their sons called with an announcement. He was going to be a father. Their first grandchild was on the way. And Tom and Jackie were overjoyed, especially Jackie. Remember, Jackie had never been able to have children of her own, and she adored kids. The thought of becoming a mom again in a new way, of cradling a tiny baby in her arms, filled her with absolute happiness. So even though Tom and Jackie loved their life aboard the yacht, they came to a decision. It was time to sell the boat and use the money to buy a house on land, somewhere near where their son lived, so they could be close to their grandchild. That November, the Hawks placed an ad in a popular fishing magazine, listing the Well Deserved for sale. The asking price was around $500,000. Soon after the ad was published, a young couple reached out. They said they had saved up a large sum of cash and were interested in buying the yacht. Tom and Jackie were thrilled. They called both of their sons to share the good news. Someone was ready to purchase the boat and the sale would be finalized within a few days. Their sons waited eagerly for the next call, a call to confirm the deal had gone through. But days passed, and then more days, and there was no word from their parents, no phone calls, no messages, just silence. Part 4: The Disappearance. Several days had passed, but Tom and Jackie's son still hadn't heard a single word from their parents. They began calling, but neither Tom nor Jackie answered their phones. That in itself was deeply troubling. Their parents weren't the type to vanish without notice, let alone cut off all communication with family. This wasn't like them at all. When Tom's older brother Jim, a retired police chief, heard about the sudden silence, his instincts kicked in. He got in his car and drove straight to Newport Beach, California to check things out himself. Maybe the sale hadn't gone through yet. Maybe the new owners hadn't taken over. Or maybe Something was wrong. Jim brought a friend with him and headed to the marina where Well-Deserved had been docked. They walked along the floating pier and soon reached the boat. From where they stood, it looked like no one was on board. But as Jim scanned the vessel, something didn't sit right. He noticed several ropes hanging loosely off the side of the yacht, left unsecured, something Tom would never do. Tom was famously meticulous and tidy. His yacht was always spotless, every rope coiled and secured. And now, it looked chaotic. Jim also noticed that the covers over the instrument panel were pulled off, but hadn't been put back properly. Again, not something Tom or Jackie would ever allow. There were also dirty towels stuffed through the porthole, adding to the impression that someone careless had taken over. The entire scene suggested that the yacht had already changed hands, that the new owners were the ones currently living on it, not Tom and Jackie. Jim pulled out one of his business cards, scribbled a note on it, and left it on the boat, looking to contact the new owners of this yacht. This vessel was sold by my brother Tom and his wife Jackie, but they are now missing. Please call me. Then Jim and his friend turned around and left the dock. As they were walking away, Jim's phone rang. It was a 21-year-old woman named Jennifer DeLeon. She said she just found Jim's card aboard her yacht, and that yes, she and her husband had bought the Well-Deserved from Tom and Jackie. But she added they too had been unable to reach the couple. Jennifer explained that after buying the yacht, she and her husband had questions about how to operate certain features, and they'd found some personal items, things the Hawks had left behind in drawers, and wanted to return them. But every attempt to reach Tom and Jackie had failed. Jim asked her, "When was the last time you and your husband actually saw them?" Jennifer replied, "The day we finalized the purchase. We handed them the cash, watched them walk to their SUV and drive away." Jim asked if the couple had said where they were headed. Jennifer answered, "We didn't talk much beyond the sale, but Tom did mention they were planning to buy a house in Mexico near the Arizona border, since their son lives in Arizona and they were expecting their first grandchild." Jim thanked her and said, "If you hear anything from them, please let me know." Jennifer agreed, adding, "And if you find out anything, please call me too. I've really been trying to get in touch with them." They hung up, and Jim, with decades of law enforcement experience behind him, knew deep down that something was very, very wrong. Part 5. The First Sign. As Jim sat down to think through any possible connections that might help him trace his younger brother and sister-in-law, he suddenly remembered a woman named Patricia. She was a longtime friend of Tom and Jackie, and had once been hired by them to assist with their finances. Throughout their years living aboard their yacht, Tom and Jackie often struggled with making electronic payments due to unstable internet access. Because of this, they had asked Patricia to act as their financial representative, responsible for handling bills and filing taxes on their behalf. Jim quickly called Patricia and asked her directly, "Have you spoken with Tom or Jackie in the past few days?" Patricia immediately replied, "No, I haven't heard anything from them." Jim then explained the concerning situation. The couple had gone completely silent, their phones unreachable, and no one in the family knew where they were. He asked another important question. Has there been any large amount of money deposited into their account recently? Because they just sold their yacht, and they should have received nearly $500,000. Patricia checked their latest transactions and responded, "I just looked. There's no large deposit at all." That information stunned both of them. They began trying to reason out possible explanations. Could Tom have asked for cash payment to avoid taxes? Were they planning to carry cash with them to Mexico? But no matter how they analyzed it, there was no logical reason for a cautious couple like Tom and Jackie not to deposit such a large sum of money into their bank account immediately after selling their boat. The phone call ended, but a deep sense of suspicion now settled in Jim's mind. Something was very wrong. Without delay, he contacted the Newport Beach Police Department and officially filed a missing persons report for Tom and Jackie Hawks. Part 6. The noose of suspicion tightens. As soon as the Newport Beach Police Department received the missing persons report for Tom and Jackie Hawks, they began their investigation by following the clearest lead: the couple who had recently purchased their yacht, the DeLeon family. Upon running a background check on 25-year-old Skylar DeLeon, the husband, police discovered a serious prior conviction. He had been arrested and sentenced for armed robbery and had served prison time. For that offense, this revelation immediately raised red flags. DeLeon quickly became a potential suspect, especially considering that he and his wife were the last known individuals to have met with the Hawks couple before they vanished. To gather more information, detectives were sent to the marina, where the well-deserved yacht was currently docked. One investigator walked along the floating pier, approached the boat, and began carefully observing it from the outside. There were no signs of anyone aboard. However, when the detective peered through a window, he thought he saw what looked like a blood-stained handprint on an interior surface. That single detail was sufficient grounds to request an official search warrant. Later that day, police executed a full search of the boat. They combed through every corner, looking for signs of violence, traces of blood, or any physical evidence. But in the end, what was initially suspected to be blood turned out to be an old rust stain. No legal evidence was recovered. The case grew more tangled and stalled. Nevertheless, police decided to summon Skylar DeLeon to the station for questioning. He fully cooperated, appeared on time, and showed no visible signs of nervousness. Skylar explained that he had seen the yacht sale advertisement in a fishing magazine and had proactively contacted Tom Hawks to negotiate. They arranged a meeting and went out to sea together for a trial run, much like a test drive, commonly known as a sea trial. According to Skylar, during the trial run he expressed interest in the boat and agreed to buy it. On November 15th, he, his pregnant wife, their young daughter, a notary public, and a friend arrived at a parking lot near the dock to finalize the transaction. Skylar claimed that Tom and Jackie showed up, received a suitcase full of cash, signed the yacht transfer paperwork with the notary present, and then left in an SUV, allegedly heading for Mexico, where they had mentioned plans to buy a home near the Arizona border to be closer to their son and future grandchild. Police asked directly, "How did you get enough cash to buy a $500,000 yacht?" Skylar answered, "Actually, back in the 1990s I used to act. I had a small role in a popular TV show, Power Rangers. I was paid and saved the money since then." But then he hesitated. After a moment of silence, Skylar admitted, "Well, that's not exactly true. I didn't earn that money from acting. I stole it." Skylar confessed that the armed robbery he had been convicted for was actually a heist targeting a drug dealer. He had hidden most of the stolen money before being caught, and after completing his prison sentence, he returned and retrieved the cash, still intact. Because the money was illegal, he wanted to clean it by purchasing a legitimate asset, the yacht, with plans to sell it afterward, thus converting dirty money into clean funds. This confession stunned the investigators. Skylar had inadvertently incriminated himself in a money laundering scheme, right in the middle of a missing persons investigation. However, Because Skylar had voluntarily confessed and was fully cooperative, the police chose not to press charges. For money laundering, at least not yet, they released him. But now, the case had taken an entirely new direction. Part 7. The Lie Unravels. This is where investigators began to suspect that every witness involved was lying, and the horrifying truth behind the disappearance started to emerge. After interviewing Skylar, police began questioning his wife, Jennifer, the notary, and the friend who had been present during the so-called yacht sale. They asked each of them the same question. What was the last time you saw Tom and Jackie Hawks? All three gave the same rehearsed answer. They took the suitcase full of cash, signed the documents, got into their SUV, and drove away. But there was one small inconsistency that caught the detective's attention. Skylar claimed that Tom looked nervous when receiving such a large amount of cash, but the notary stated that Tom and Jackie were completely calm. Though subtle, that detail planted seeds of doubt. After all interviews were completed, the investigators felt like they had hit a wall. No concrete evidence, no confessions, no clear direction forward. So they turned to the media. They issued a missing persons alert, including photos of Tom and Jackie as well as their SUV. They urged the public to come forward with any information. Few days later, a retired couple living in Mexico called in. They said, "The Hawks SUV is parked right across the street from our house." Authorities in both the US and Mexico mobilized quickly. Officers swarmed the area, hoping to find Tom and Jackie or at least someone connected to them. They knocked on the door of the house where the vehicle was parked. A man neither side recognized answered the door. He looked confused. Police asked, "Whose SUV is that outside?" The man replied, "It belongs to a friend of mine." The officers followed up, "Is your friend named Tom or Jackie Hawks?" The man shook his head. "No, I don't know who they are. That vehicle belongs to Skylar de Leon." At that moment, police knew for certain Skylar was lying. Skylar had claimed that after the sale, the Hawks drove away toward Mexico in that SUV, but clearly he had kept the vehicle for himself and given it away to someone else in Mexico. With why? This discovery, police used his previous money laundering confession to formally arrest Skylar. With Skylar now in custody, investigators conducted a search of the de Leon's home. Inside, they found several personal belongings of Tom and Jackie, including a video camera, a laptop, a digital camera, items the couple would never have left behind on their yacht. Despite this mountain of evidence, Skylar continued to deny everything. "It's all a misunderstanding. I don't know what happened to them." Meanwhile, his wife Jennifer appeared on television, giving an emotional interview. "Skylar is innocent. We're just as worried about Tom and Jackie as everyone else." But police weren't buying it. They were convinced Skylar was hiding something enormous. Unfortunately, he refused to say another word, repeating the same denial over and over. "I don't know what happened." So investigators shifted their focus back to the other witnesses, the notary and the so-called friend who had been present at the sale. The notary, a woman named Kathleen Harris, had a clean record and was known as a reputable professional. Police called her back, and once again she was asked, "When was the last time you saw Tom and Jackie?" She repeated the same story. They came to sign the papers, took the cash, got in the car, and drove off. But after a longer, more intense interrogation, Kathleen finally broke down and told the truth. "I never met Tom or Jackie in my life. Skylar paid me in cash to backdate the documents. The papers were already signed when I received them. I don't know what happened to the couple. This was the breakthrough. Police immediately summoned the last witness, the friend who had been at the supposed transaction. His name was Alonzo McChain. When questioned, Alonzo also repeated the rehearsed story. They signed the documents, took the cash, left in their SUV. But detectives cut him off. Stop. We already spoke to Kathleen. She told us she wasn't even there. The documents were pre-signed, so we know you're lying too. Alonzo fell silent. His body language shifted. He stopped making eye contact. Sensing an opportunity, the officers made an offer. If you tell us the full truth about what happened to Tom and Jackie, we will reduce your sentence significantly. Alonzo agreed, and what he revealed next would haunt everyone involved forever. Part 8. Alonzo's Confession. The Setup and the Killers. Alonzo McChain was a young man, impressionable, uncertain, and in over his head. At the time of the crime, he was in his early to mid-20s and worked as a jail guard in a California prison. It was there, behind prison walls, that he met Skylar DeLeon, who was serving time for armed robbery. After Skylar's release, the two stayed in touch. They became friends, spending time together, getting closer. Then, in November 2004, Skylar called Alonzo for a private conversation. He told him something shocking. "I'm actually a contract killer. People hire me to eliminate bad people. I don't kill innocents, just the scum of the earth." Then he said, "I've got a job right now, a hit on two really awful people, Tom and Jackie Hawks. I just need help carrying it out. If you help me, I'll pay you $1 million. Alonzo hesitated, but eventually he agreed. The day of the murder on November 15th, Skylar, Alonzo, and a third man named John Fitzgerald Kennedy, a large, muscular gang member from Southern California, headed to the parking lot near the marina. They weren't going there to buy a boat. They were going there to kill. Tom and Jackie Hawks arrived, expecting a friendly meeting and a routine sea trial. But Tom, a former probation officer, immediately noticed something off. He glanced at the three men waiting for them and whispered to Jackie, "I don't feel good about this. Something doesn't feel right." He began making excuses, trying to delay or cancel the sea trial. Skylar noticed his hesitation, so he stepped aside and made a phone call to his wife, Jennifer. She was close by. Just minutes later, Jennifer pulled into the parking lot with their baby daughter in her arms. As she approached the group, the energy shifted. Jackie saw the baby. Her face softened and she smiled. She picked up the child, chatted with Jennifer, who acted kind and gentle. The atmosphere lightened. The tension dissolved. Tom, seeing Jackie now comfortable, slowly let his guard down. Finally, he said, "All right, let's go ahead with it. Let's take the boat out." The group boarded the well-deserved together. As the boat prepared to leave the dock, Jennifer said, "I can't come along. The baby's fussy. I'll take her home." She left the marina, leaving Tom and Jackie alone with three men. Still uneasy but reassured by the earlier scene, Tom assumed everything was legitimate. He started the engine and set off for open water. Once they were well offshore, with no land in sight, Skylar and John approached Tom. They said, "Hey, there's something below deck we want to show you." Tom followed them down to the cabin. Up above, Alonzo and Jackie were in the galley. Suddenly, they heard a commotion. Violent sounds coming from below. A struggle. A fight. Alonzo knew exactly what was happening. Skylar and John were attacking. Tom Without warning, Alonzo grabbed Jackie, tackled her to the floor, twisted her arms behind her back, and handcuffed her. It happened in seconds. Jackie didn't even have time to scream. After Jackie was restrained, Skylar and John came back up. Tom wasn't with them. They dragged Jackie down into the cabin. There, she saw Tom lying motionless on the bed, his hands cuffed, eyes dazed. They threw Jackie onto the bed next to her husband. She turned to Skylar, terrified, and pleaded, "Why are you doing this? I just held your baby. Please, we just want to go home and see our grandchild." But Skylar was stone cold. He gave a command. "Tape their eyes. Tape their mouths." Alonzo obeyed. Meanwhile, Skylar returned to the helm and began piloting the yacht farther out, toward the deepest part of the ocean. Alonzo remembered how, even then, Tom reached for Jackie's hand, trying to comfort her despite his own fear. He whispered, "It's going to be okay. Whatever happens, we'll be together." And then, the boat slowed to a stop. They had arrived. Skylar shouted from the bridge, "Bring them up top!" Part 9. The Execution at Sea. This is the most devastating and horrific part of the entire case. Skylar had steered the well-deserved to a remote spot, deep offshore, surrounded by nothing but open sea. Then, standing on the upper deck, he shouted down, "Bring them up!" Alonzo and John led Tom and Jackie Hawks, both bound in handcuffs, their eyes and mouths taped shut, up to the main deck. There, Skylar forced them to sign a series of documents. First, he had them sign the official transfer of ownership, making well-deserved legally his. Then he made them sign additional paperwork that would give him access to their bank accounts and financial assets. Though terrified, Jackie deliberately misspelled her last name, omitting the S in Hawks. It was not an accident. It was her final desperate signal, a cry for help embedded in ink, hoping someone would notice one day that she hadn't signed willingly. Once the papers were signed, the three killers dragged Tom and Jackie to the stern, the rear of the boat. Then Skylar turned to Alonzo and, loud enough for the victims to hear, said, "Go to the bow. Bring the anchor." In that instant, Tom and Jackie understood. Jackie began to sob, begging through the tape, "Please don't do this. We just want to meet our grandchild. Please, we're good people." Tom broke free enough to lunge forward, kicking Skylar in the groin and knocking him to the deck. But John reacted instantly. He slammed both Tom and Jackie down, restraining them again. He forced them into a seated position, back to back, and locked their handcuffs together behind them. Meanwhile, Alonzo dragged the heavy anchor across the deck, its iron scraping against the wood like a warning from hell. Skylar picked up the long metal chain attached to the anchor, followed it to the loose end, and clipped it to the handcuffs binding Tom and Jackie. After checking the connection, Skylar stood up, hoisted the anchor with both arms, and with one powerful swing hurled it overboard. Immediately, the anchor plunged into the ocean, and the chain zipped across the deck, screeching as it scraped the wood and metal railings. Tom and Jackie were yanked toward the edge. Alonzo later said he watched in horror as Jackie's head struck the side of the boat with a sickening crack, a sound that would haunt him forever. And then, all three killers, Skylar, John, and Alonzo, just stood there staring coldly as Tom and Jackie struggled and screamed behind the tape, clawing, grabbing, resisting. Tom tried to hold on to something, anything, to stop the inevitable. But the weight of the anchor, the force of the chain, and the rhythm of the waves were unstoppable. Bound together, Tom and Jackie were dragged off the deck, over the railing, and into the deep sea. They hit the water still alive, still conscious. Then the chain pulled them down, 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 into the black abyss nearly 100 meters deep, about 3,500 feet. Alonzo confessed that as the couple vanished beneath the surface, Skylar raised his arms in the air and shouted, "Woo-hoo!" He ran to the rail like a child watching fireworks. He giggled, eyes wide with excitement, looking down at the sea where 2 lives had just been stolen. He didn't stop smiling until the water was calm again, until there were no more bubbles, no more ripples, no more trace. Then without a word, he turned away, walked back to the helm, and steered the yacht back toward the marina, as if nothing had happened. Part 10. Jennifer, the mastermind in the shadows and the tape from hell. Although Jennifer DeLeon wasn't physically present on the yacht at the time Tom and Jackie were murdered, she was an indispensable part of the crime, and in fact, many signs point to her being the one who devised the plan from the very beginning. The idea to eliminate the Hawks couple originated with Jennifer. She wanted money, and she wanted it fast. Do you remember the scene where Jennifer brought her young daughter to the marina, causing Jackie to soften and change her mind? That moment wasn't a coincidence. It was a calculated and carefully staged move, designed to build trust, lower the Hawks' defenses, and lead them directly into a trap at sea. Jennifer knew exactly what was going to happen once the boat left the dock. She wasn't just an accomplice. She was the one directing it all. What's more, throughout the entire process, Skylar kept calling Jennifer for updates. Every time he needed guidance, he picked up the phone. "They've signed the papers. What should I do next? The anchor is ready. Do you think I should do it now? They're begging, but you're right, we have to finish it." Jennifer never hesitated. She gave her instructions calmly, coldly, as if she were managing a financial transaction. Shocking evidence. The soulless tape. When police searched the home of Skylar and Jennifer DeLeon, they discovered a camcorder, the very same one Tom and Jackie had used for years to document their life aboard the Well-Deserved. They played the tape inside, and the opening scene was enough to leave everyone speechless. Jackie was behind the camera. She walked slowly through the different areas of the boat, filming every detail, as if she were saying goodbye to a dear old friend. Her voice trembled, filled with emotion. "This is probably the last time I'll be able to film the inside of this beloved boat. But Tom and I are very happy. We've found kind and trustworthy buyers. The future looks bright. We're about to become grandparents." The footage radiated hope. None of them, not even Jackie, could have known they'd be brutally murdered just hours later. Then suddenly, the footage cut. The screen jumped to an entirely different scene. Skylar and Jennifer sitting at the dining table celebrating Thanksgiving, laughing, playing with their toddler daughter, as if no crime had ever taken place. This was no coincidence. It was undeniable evidence that, shortly after murdering Tom and Jackie, the DeLeons had erased all footage of their victims from the camera and simply kept using it to document their new life. No mention of Tom, no trace of Jackie, not a flicker of hesitation, not a second of silence, no emotion, even resembling guilt. Police would later refer to the tape as a chilling reel straight from hell, where the memory of the victims was wiped clean, replaced by the hollow laughter of killers. Part 11. The Fate of the Killers. Alonzo McChain, The man who revealed the full truth was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He originally faced a much harsher sentence, but because he cooperated fully and became the key witness in cracking the case, his sentence was reduced. Jennifer DeLeon, the mastermind behind the plan, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She will grow old and die behind bars. She will never be released. John Kennedy, the man who tightened the cuffs and threw the couple into the ocean, was sentenced to death. Skylar DeLeon, the ringleader, manipulator, and direct executioner, was also sentenced to death. You've just heard a true story, or at least a piece of the truth, but what you just heard might still be happening somewhere out there. This is THN Mystery, where every shadow leaves a trace. Let us know your thoughts on the story, or tell us what you want to hear next. See you again, if you still dare to return.